So this is my first video on beer making for you preppers out there. You know, if you're going to make beer, or if you're going to be a prepper, you should know how to make beer. So beer is a way to store the nutrients from your grains. So since I live up in Washington State, basically the microbrew capital of the world, we have a Silver City Fat Scotch Ale here that we're trying. This is the second attempt. The first one was terrible. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to your local brew supply house if you're going to do something like this, and you'll just put you together a recipe. Otherwise, if you were going to do this on your own as a prepper, then you just crack your greens and boil them down till you extracted the sugars, throw some yeast in there and let the stuff ferment, and then learn how to bottle it up. So the first thing we got, besides our recipe, if we're going to do this, I'm doing extract brewing. So we got some grains. We're doing partial. We got a bag of grains here. We got a bag of hops. We got some other hops, a couple different kinds. Then we're doing our extracts. So rather than the batch of beer that I'm doing would take like 15, 17, 18 pounds of grain, rather than doing a whole feed sack full. People have already done it for you in sterilized forms, and it's basically in a syrup. We have some of these tablets right here that you can actually throw in later on, 10 minutes before the end of the boil, and these will help to clarify the stuff if you like it clear. Once you're done with everything and it's aged and fermented, then before you bottle it, you'll throw some of this corn sugar in there. But you got to boil and sterilize. So there's a lot to this brewing stuff. This is your wort cooler, W-O-R-T, and that's what you make once you put this and all this stuff here together before you throw your yeast and everything. It's wort. So this is for cooling, and you want to get that down below 80 degrees as quick as you can. What you have here is you can hook your garden hose on this, and you stick that down in your pot and you stir your pot. You want to polish this off with vinegar first, otherwise it'll come out real shiny, and what happened is that went in your that's in your beer. So another thing you'll end up with is you got your flask here, and you have a hydrometer, which this hydrometer, there we go, is wine and beer hydrometer. And basically what this looks like is a candy thermometer, but it has a weight in the bottom, a glass valve, and this has scales on it. Don't know if you can see that or not. This has scales on this thing, and depending on where it floats down in here, you'll read that at the end of your brewing and then after the fermentation, and you'll do a little calculation with those numbers, and it'll tell you the percentage of alcohol content in your beer. Another thing you'll want to sample it is called a beer thief. This has a little check valve at the end, and when you pick it up, the check valve stops. So you can stick this down in your glass carboy, and you can bring it up, and you'll have a little tube full of beer. You can float your hydrometer in that if you don't want to use the test tube or whatever that thing's called. Another thing you have is you have your siphoner, and you'll take this siphoner, it's auto siphon, you pull it up and you push it down, it'll force liquid up through this hose, and it'll basically prime it so you can put it into the lower carboy that you may have on the floor, or bottle it. You can put this bottling attachment on the bottom of it. You stick that right in that tube there while you're siphoning, and this is a valve in it, just like the bottom of your beer thief. So what you'll do here is you'll take, while you're putting your beer in, stick that down to the bottom, and as long as it's touching the bottom, this bottle's filling. When it gets full, just pull it up, and the valve automatically shuts off. It gives you the proper amount of head space in there. while your beer is fermenting, I like to use one of these plastic blow-off containers. It's just a plastic hose with a clip, and then you've got a plug on top of it with a hole in it that you'll plug in top of that, because as your beer is brewing, or as it's fermenting, it's going to continually gas off CO2. Now, when it comes time to bottle, another thing I find handy is a bottle wash. So I've got my sanitization solution in here, and if you push that, it squirts it up inside that bottle, and then you come over here and you stick it in this thing, and that'll actually stack, and you can let them drain out. Now, I like using the acid star sand solution because it's only, I think, 15 seconds in contact with this acid. Follow the directions. Otherwise, you use the iodine based stuff, and it's like 10 minutes, but I like this. So you got a nice big funnel, and notice you've got a little bit of a flute right there, because when you're filling these carboys, you know, you need that. Carboy handle. I just put this on there because I've already got the sanitization solution in there. The bubbles and stuff sanitized too, and it doesn't affect the flavor of stuff, but I will, of course, drain this out. Something else you might want to do is they've got some stuff called PBW, and that's to help you basically clean your equipment. Like earlier, this had some real crud in the top of it from the last batch I brewed. And then also, you'll have your yeast that you'll be throwing in. So that's not actually the proper yeast that I'm going to be throwing in. It's a different kind of yeast. So anyway, I hope this kind of shows you a little bit of what you're going to be in for. And then another thing, you got your, say, get you a 4 or 5 gallon. This is a 6 gallon carboy. You definitely want one of them. And then you've got your stock pot. You get your 4 or 5 gallon stock pot. Get you a long stainless steel spoon, and then you're going to want you a nice sterilizable strainer, because when you are done cooking, you're going to strain all your stuff through that into here, and you don't want those hop leaves and things like that out of these bags in there. And then when you're doing your grain, one more thing that you want to do is they've got these bags that you can put your grain in, and we actually end up reusing these. They're kind of like a sock material, but or almost like cheesecloth. They're stretchy, and you can put your grain inside of this. You tie the top off, and you steep your grain. So, for instance, you got your fat Scotch ale here. See if I can get that to focus. We've got these different type of malts up here, and that's what I mean when I say grain. So you've got 2 different kinds of malts: Munich malt, black malt, peat smoke malt, Munich, and then you take those and you'll put them in here. So in the next video, I'll talk to you more about this recipe. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. The last one wasn't too good, but this is a really smooth beverage with a fairly high alcohol content.